have a little challenge for you. Could you guess the percentage of how many single 18 to 29-year-old men there are in the US? 10%? 15%? What about 20%? It's actually 51% according to a 2020 study. In that same study, only 32% of women were actually single in the same age category. Other studies show that young American adult males not only are single, but have never even had a date. And this is not just from a dating perspective, but more and more guys report having only a few or in fact no friends in their life. Male loneliness is a big problem, and in this video we will discuss the causes of this issue and what to do if you find yourself being lonely and unable to have proper social interactions in your life. Hi guys, my name is Cam Adair and I'm the founder of GameQuitters.com. On our website, we help gamers and families get control over gaming so they can live a healthy and thriving life. Before we go any further, we need to understand why loneliness is a problem. Countless research shows that humans are social animals, and no matter how extroverted or introverted you are, we all need social interaction and friends. Your survival literally depends on this. From an evolutionary perspective, being a part of a community and having friends meant increased chances of survival. You might think that these are no longer times when we need to gather in groups or worry about survival in the same context, but in reality, little has actually changed. It's an illusion to think that you can live your life solo. You need people to provide you with a job. You need people like your parents to help you grow and to give you time and space to learn new skills. So eventually you can go off on your own when you're ready. And you need people who support you when you get in trouble and to help you out during these hard times. I know, in my life, I've had so many people who have helped me become the person I am today, whether it was hockey coaches, guidance counselors, my friends and family, or even my uncle, who is someone who has always been there for me and helped me get through my most difficult moments. You need people, you need good people, and you're never going to succeed by yourself. To even listen and understand what I'm saying now, you needed people to raise you, teach you the language, and teach you how to use technology. That's why if you were always alone, you experience negative psychological effects that include anxiety, stress, and depression. Now, it's important for me to note, I said if you were always alone. I'm an introvert, I like my space, and I'm not saying you need to be surrounded by people 24/7, but being alone 24/7 will be just as bad, if not worse. For example, prisoners who spend an excessive amount of time in solitary confinement, which is a type of imprisonment in which the inmate lives in a single cell, often with no meaningful contact with other people. These prisoners actually experience serious psychological effects from their isolation. And if we just take the consideration of COVID into this context, think about COVID and how it radically changed the amount of social interaction you have, not just with friends and family, but also just in your community. We spent so much time isolated by ourselves in apartments or at home without that physical contact. And it had a major impact on us, not just through our work and through how our lives have changed, but through our social contact and our community. I think with COVID, there's been a really big focus on how everyone's been isolated and how that's had a really big impact on people. But I don't think we've always drawn the conclusion that that means that we should be kind of more social or more involved in our community as we move forward into, I guess, what they're calling the new normal. All this isolation has also made it where we have a lot of bad habits that we are now trying to break out of. There's only one thing that separates many young guys from living in the same isolation with or without COVID, and that's technology. Social media, video games, pornography, and online entertainment create an illusion of socializing, and those extend the amount of time that you're able to spend by yourself. This is why in the past, when there was no technology like this, people had to seek out and actually find friends and like-minded people to spend time with. They tended to spend time maybe in the library or in a cafe or joining clubs where you could meet like-minded people. In past times, you had to really engage in your environment, engage in the world around you, otherwise you would just be bored. Now imagine yourself sitting in a room without technology. I imagine you'd instantly start feeling bored and get a craving to check your phone or to turn on a TV to be entertained. And that's not only because of being less stimulated, but also because you were experiencing true loneliness. If you were constantly walking around listening to music, listening to YouTube videos, eating while watching your favorite TV series, or playing online multiplayer video games, you constantly feel like you're not alone. You subconsciously think that there are other people in the room with you. I know when I was living in Victoria, at the time I was playing StarCraft, all day, every day. And my roommate asked me if I wanted to go out to the club and go meet people, go socialize on a Friday night. And I said no, because, to him, he thought that I was missing out on social interaction. But to me, I felt like I was hanging out with my friends. I was just hanging out with them online. It was the Friday night party, but it was in Battle.net instead of out at a club. So all the gaming I was doing made me feel like I wasn't actually missing out on social interactions, although it's not quite the same thing, which we'll get into. Nowadays, it's not just playing video games, though. It's the constant stimulation of your phone. Eating while watching a video, you constantly feel like there are people around you. And that's often how nowadays guys become, and they stay lonely because they have an artificial replacement. Pornography means that you don't need to actually approach a woman and build a relationship and a family. Video games mean that you are always doing quests with others, and in this way, you fill the void of being a part of a tribe. Watching other people on YouTube gives an illusion that you are with somebody. You're hanging out with, maybe to some people, your best friend. In reality, all of this is not real. And once you become conscious of it, even just a little bit, and turn that technology off for a moment, it begins to set in. I probably don't need to share many more examples and really talk about why loneliness is a problem, because if you experience it, you feel it, and you have a strong desire to get out of it. So now let's talk about how to do that. How do you actually get rid of loneliness? Well, first you need to start by identifying the things that are making you more socially isolated. What are these activities? And then you need to either moderate them or you need to quit them entirely. Again, these activities might be video games, social media, online entertainment, pornography, masturbation, constant screen time, and more. You need to identify which of these and others inhibit your ability to spend time actually trying to be social or spending time with people face to face. For instance, video games might be leading you to spend a lot of time in your room isolated from your family. Or you might not feel like you're missing out on that Friday night party because you're partying with your friends on Discord, but you are still missing out on that social interaction in person, which has long-term, consequences in many ways, but certainly a long-term impact. Once you're aware of the activities that are holding you back, you need to either moderate them to more manageable, healthy levels or eliminate them entirely. Now, I have a video that can help you moderate your gaming, and so you can check that one out in the description. But it's really important that you identify not just the games that might be holding you back from being social, but the social media apps, the time online, the time in front of a screen, because it's so much more isolating than you realize. I mean, just think about it. If you're out for dinner with a bunch of friends and everyone's on their phone, you're not actually connecting. You're not really spending any time together. You might be physically present, but emotionally you're not connected. Another thing that could be holding back your social potential is underlying trauma. A lot of us have gone through different experiences growing up, and that can really be creating different anxieties, including social anxiety. So if you're struggling to really take action with your social life, then you might want to go seek professional help and see if there's some social anxiety underneath the surface. That will allow you to dive more deeply into the root causes of your loneliness and can actually heal and fix these issues entirely. Last but not least, you can try exposure therapy. You don't need to necessarily get help from a psychologist to do this. And in fact, exposure therapy is something you can try for yourself. Exposure therapy is a psychological treatment that helps people confront their fears. If you're not used to having proper social interaction and distract yourself with the previously mentioned social media apps and so forth, there's a good chance that you are uncomfortable or even afraid of socializing. Exposure therapy can help you with exactly that. It's based on a gradual and slow improvement towards facing what you fear. This means you need to first individually become conscious of what the line is for you between acting and not acting. For some individuals, for instance, that might be you literally are afraid to leave your house. Whereas for other people, it might be more nervous to actually approach a stranger and have a random conversation. Everyone's line is going to be a little bit different, so you need to identify where your line is and what progress would look like for you. And then it's about taking baby steps towards exposing yourself a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. Each time it might feel a little bit uncomfortable, but over time you're getting better and better, more and more comfortable. And that's what exposure therapy is all about. So for instance, let's say you want a girlfriend. Finding a girlfriend can be difficult and it might require a lot of different steps. So instead of skipping steps and expecting to instantly strike up a conversation with a girl and maybe get her number and go on a date and eventually start a family, maybe for you, it's about actually just starting to say hello to people around you, having short conversations with the barista, and just getting more comfortable in social interactions. Starting there means that you develop more confidence, you become more familiar, and you start to take further and further steps. Maybe that hello leads to a how are you, and eventually leads to you going on a date for coffee and getting to know each other better. I know when I approached my girlfriend actually in a cafe in Chiang Mai, I asked her what she liked about the book she was reading, and she shared she didn't really know, and I didn't have anything else to say. But eventually we exchanged Instagram and went on a date, and I asked her what kind of inspired her to read that book, and we connected, and here we are 5 years later. So it really is about starting small, getting more comfortable in the areas where you're not comfortable, and gradually, slowly, over time, all that growth will lead you to a better place. So by now you understand why being alone is a problem, and you are ready to get rid of or moderate the activities that are destroying your social confidence, and you are ready to take a risk and expose yourself to discomfort in order to rise up and improve your life. But there remains a challenge. Change is uncomfortable, and being comfortable is easier. So check out my video on how comfort is ruining your life.